So, Bob, it's your birthday.
Yeah.
And I thought, as a birthday present to you, I asked all the listeners to submit things that they could say on a Bob birthday card.
Oh, that's nice.
And I printed them all out. Well, I'll just give it to... Well, I have a smaller gift, which is a Tony's Chocolonely milk chocolate bar.
Tony's is the best. There's a free advertisement for Tony. Oh.
So why do you like these exactly?
Did you ever try it?
I bought a couple and ate them very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
It's a very satisfying chocolate bar because it reminds me of the way chocolate used to taste when I was a kid, and also the size of it. It's like it's a very thick chocolate bar.
Chunky.
Yeah. And satisfying. And there's no frills, it doesn't have like lavender infused. Sometimes that's fine.
Right?
But sometimes you just want
Yeah.
But why do you like it?
Same reason. It's got a good mouthfeel and it's chunky, and some milk chocolate, not so good. This is very good. They make good dark chocolate too, but somehow I've gravitated to Tony's milk chocolate, which, you sent me a case of these the other day or the other week, and I have 8 of them left.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I don't know how you resist. But the main gift I have for you is, again, I asked all the listeners to submit as if I was passing around a card at the office or something.
Right, yeah.
And I'm going to give it to you now.
Thanks. Oh, golly, look at that. Holy cow, that's enormous. Well,
read one or two.
Read one. Okay, here's one.
Into the microphone.
Oh, right, into the mic. Hi, Bob. Can I take it off the thing? Oh, yeah. Hi, Bob. Happiest of birthdays. Thank you for sharing parts of you, your journey, your therapy, and your insights. As someone who is borderline, it is tremendously helpful to listen to your laughter, your inquisitive nature, and your caring approach to us listeners, and to Kirk as well. Hugs and love, Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. Wow. I am going to treasure this. I keep a folder in my email with the things that folks have written to me, and this will be just like that, except visual, hanging in my office at work. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kirk, and thanks. Wow.
Yeah, so there were a lot more submissions than I planned.
Oh.
There's like 100 or 200 or something.
Whoa.
And I printed them all out on cardstock, different color.
Yeah.
We'll post a picture of this on Instagram, and you can see what it looks like. I really like the way it looks because it draws your eye, and you have to hang it up. It's not a folder on your email account. This is something that will hang, hopefully, I don't know, somewhere where that you can look at it.
Oh, yeah.
And peruse it. It's a physical example of how you're appreciated and loved, and how you've changed people's lives. There are some powerful messages in there, Bob. I encourage you to, really take in what these people are saying. People saying that you completely changed their lives, that they became a therapist because of you, they're a better therapist because of you, your vulnerability and your relatability. They feel the same way that you do about their therapist, and they, listening to you, realize that they need to talk to their therapist about it and persist when they were on the verge of terminating, that kind of thing. And also, a fair amount of people since a recent episode of yours, you were unsure if any of the therapy had been working, including the current therapy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were relating to that, but also feeling sad with you. And a lot of people also saying, I have Butler syndrome, and one butler to another, you deserve to have what you want, to ask for what you want, know what you want. So just really powerful, very specific. I mean, because it's one thing for people to be like, happy birthday, Bob, and those are all great, of course, well wishes. It's another thing for these messages to just indicate how, I don't know, just how deep their relationship is with you.
Wow. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kirk. Thanks, everybody. Wow. I'll take my time and I'll read every single one. And I thank you.
You'll have to let us know where you put it.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's going to hang on my office door, or, anyways, on the wall in my office. I'll when I get it up, I'll send a photo.
Yeah, for people that never go to Instagram, I got one of those things that you hang on the wall where you can clip a bunch of pictures to, and it's the top plate is a like a chalkboard little correct rectangle. Dangling from it are 5 strings with all these little clips, and then typically the chalkboard will say something like family, and then the dangling strings will have a bunch of pictures of you with your family. But I thought, well, I wonder if I could actually, because I wanted to, the first idea I had was to solicit these kinds of submissions from the listeners, because I don't know, I just felt like after the last time we talked, it might help on some level. And then I also thought, well, I don't want to just have it go into an email folder or something. I want it to be eye-catching. I want it to be something. I don't want to force Bob to have this hanging in his office, but I want to make it as an option. And I thought, well, what could that look like? I just landed on those kind of picture hanging things. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll just print them out. And I'm like, well, pieces of paper, that's kind of lame. So I thought, well, cardstock and different color cardstock. I even used a font. I really dialed in the font quite specifically because you don't want Times New Roman when it comes to messages like this, but you also don't want super cursive script because that's kind of hard to read. So it took me a while to find the right font that is in between that, where it feels handwritten-y, but also not illegible.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Chose well.
To me, if I were in your shoes as a podcaster, you can look at this as because we do this all the time, but there's no physical representation of what we do. And we hardly ever even meet any listeners in person. You met some when you came to our live event, not too actually before the pandemic as well.
Yeah, 5 years, yeah.
But you probably didn't spend a lot of time with them.
No, I didn't.
So that might have been the only time you've ever had that.
It is.
As far as you know, I've been lying to you the whole time and not even recording this, you know what I mean? And you just have no physical evidence. But to have this, rainbow-colored cards of all these people, and this is just the people who submitted the kind of stuff. Also, someone submitted a video that I'll show you later.
Wow.
So happy birthday, Bob.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
Can you oblige me by trying to let it sink in as you peruse these later?
Yeah. I think today I walked in kind of guarded and nothing to do with you, just tension that I'm feeling lately. So I'm just slowing down right now, and I can feel the anxiety of, accept. But I can also feel, appreciation, care. Thank you.
So you notice in this moment that 10 minutes ago you were tense and guarded, protecting yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Survival.
Someone does, yeah.
But upon this, it softens you and allows you to recognize you were tense and you're softening up. Does it feel better to soften up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like feeling on guard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hardly even really noticed it. Just, kind of irritability. I noticed that, but, yeah. Funny, so easy to forget.
What it's like to be human.
Yeah. Right, and what it's like to experience care. Experience care, not just, oh yes, that's care. Not just intellectually, but to actually experience care. Like I was treating the world this morning like I'm all alone in it and nervous. I had a meeting with a potential consultant, couple therapy consultant that I'm thinking about hiring, and she was lovely. I think I probably will hire her. We'll see. But I was nervous about it, of course, and it feels a little like a, pardon me, like a job interview. It's funny, I'm hiring her, and yet it feels like I'm having a job. Yeah, funny. So some of other kinds of tension has sort of left me a bit on guard, and so it feels normal to be that way, and normal, that's not quite the right word. Typical, average, what's the word? I don't know.
Cruising speed?
Yeah, thank you. Cruising speed, yeah. So to remember that there's a world beyond the world I see, to take the
Yeah, I can relate.
Off.
As you do this, I am softening myself.
Right.
I didn't have a interview with a consultant this morning. I literally just woke up, actually.
Oh.
I woke up at like an hour ago, but I've just been running around. But even then, cruising speed for me is to not be vulnerable and soft and human, and in the moment, and without paranoia.
Yeah.
And it's a strong word, but even securely attached people, I think, walk around with a fair amount of paranoia, a fair amount of worry and distrust. Could be, I would argue, a product of our society being in contact with too many strangers and not in contact enough with our kin, our tribe.
Yeah.
I just think how wonderful life must have been, and how wonderful life is for many people on the planet today who wake up in the same room with their sub-tribe, if you will. They're 10 people. And then they emerge into the day with the other 40 or 50 people that they have lived with their entire lives. And then they just do their stuff, their chores and their jokes and their trials and tribulations all together. And just imagine just how generally regulating it would feel to just know that you're just always accepted. There's just no question. And it's not only by one or two people, it's by 50 people.
Right.
And they would die for you. And they know you. They know everything about you. So I'm glad that you're able to feel that softening and that you are cared about.
That's my tribe up there, eh?
Clearly. People really, really wanted to let you know that you're cared about.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
So you would be a bad butler to ignore that.
I would.
To not let it sink in. All right, let's take a break.
Yep.
Get back. Emails, what do you say?
Yep.
All right, we're back from the break. So, questions. Annual long-term patron Soft Noodles. She says here, as always, I love the Bob episodes, and I have some questions for the two of you. Do you think you guys would have been friends as kids? What do you think, Bob?
I was thinking about this yesterday, right? You sent me these questions so I could just, be familiar. And I was thinking, well, in high school, would we have traveled in the same circles? Like, I didn't play football.
Well, kids is different. I hear, like, grade school.
Oh, neighborhood kids? Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, without question.
Right.
Yeah, we would have been running around on bikes and playing, sports and whatever. And, yeah, all summer long, all that good stuff. And
Yeah.
flashlight tag. Flashlight tag's really fun.
I mean, we have a lot in common regardless in terms of just our vibe.
Yeah.
But when I was young in grade school, and this isn't an insult, I was friends with whoever was in my neighborhood. Like all the kids,
Right.
all the girls and all the boys, and there were a lot of them that lived. I mean, my best friends literally lived right next to me. There were two brothers to my left and one guy to my right.
Do I know any of them?
No, actually. I wasn't friends with them in high school. They were different grades. And as you were getting to thinking about high school, we didn't really share a lot in common. And if we had met in high school, we probably wouldn't have been friends. Point is I don't know if we would be friends in high school, but I could see us being friends in high school. I could absolutely see us being friends, even though we weren't into the same thing. Because most of my friends weren't in football.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The few friends that were, they weren't good at football.
Oh.
Like they didn't start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what kind of guys were you friends with in high school?
Oh, band geeks.
Okay.
Yeah. All my friends are the band geeks. Except my last little bit of high school, I was friends with the kids on the track team.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty close. Like in my group,
Yeah.
there were a few track people.
Yeah.
And certainly a number of former band members. But being in band in high school was kind of a thing. It's a commitment, not like it is when you're younger, you know?
Yeah.
There's trips and equipment and
Band camp. Like
and
literally band camp.
did you get a girlfriend in band camp?
I did not have a girlfriend in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely could see us being friends, particularly as kids. I could imagine us going in the slip and slide together and
Yeah.
running through the woods,
Yeah.
throwing rocks at cars, all that kind of stuff.
Mischief.
Yeah, we used to do all sorts of stuff. I mean, the rocks at cars thing was because the older kids were convincing me and Erica to do that when we were, I think, 4 years old.
Oh my, yeah, right. Real little.
And then we never did that again. But we used to play chicken with cars. We would lay in the middle of the street at night. Me and my 3 best friends that lived right next to me, we would wait until the very last minute. We could see how long we could wait until we jumped up and ran into the woods. And the most exciting part of it was when occasionally the car would screech to a halt and jump out and chase us.
Oh, well, of course.
But we know all the back
Right.
trails.
Right.
And so, and it, it's pitch black. In Sammamish Plateau, Pine Lake Plateau, there's no streetlights, like zero.
Yeah. It's dark. It's
So the only light
Right.
you're getting is from the moon and from the occasional porch light of a house. And back then, they didn't have these blasting LEDs. There would just be like a single 60-watt bulb
Right.
hanging out by the front door of a house that's surrounded by trees anyway. So you just had to know by memory where to run,
right.
And I guess we'd have the glow of the headlights of the car that was parked on the street. But we just loved this game.
Oh,
We'd play it
Horrifying.
all the time.
Oh, so dangerous.
I know.
Like if you had a kid, you'd ground him. I would ground my kid.
It was the 70s, and
Well,
parents figured, well, we've got 4 kids. What's it to us if we lose one? Also, like, our parents didn't care. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned about asking my parents about their childhood is just how even less their parents cared about what they were doing in the neighborhood when they were kids.
Right.
Anyway. Well, would you have played D&D with me? Because I would have tried to rope you to that.
I played D&D in 7th and 8th grade a little bit.
Okay.
And didn't really understand it. I don't think I understand it now, but we would have Saturday games, with a bunch of dorks.
Would you have participated in my video skit making projects?
That would have been fun. I think back then I was so shy I might have passed on that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I had shy friends that didn't pass because
right
no one, there was no internet, so the only one that was going to see it was going to be us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wasn't much to do. There wasn't much at stake, I guess.
Right.
As evidenced by just the cringiness of the stuff that I was doing with my friends. I mean, we would do lip syncs to like Huey Lewis in the News and stuff.
Oh boy. Yeah, put that on Instagram.
Yeah. Another question from Soft Noodles. She says, what is the last thing you cried about?
Oh. Do you think Soft Noodles is talking about like shedding a tear or two or just out and out crying?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, well, about 3 weeks ago, why was I crying? Oh, no, it was the other day.
She's talking about like sobbing.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? The last time I cried was last week when I went to the mantle in my house and me and Colleen just had our 19th anniversary of our first date. So we always celebrate that. We give each other cards. She can't remember the date we got married. I have a very hard time with it. I have to do a little math before I can conjure it up. But we both remember our first date day. And so anyways, I pulled the card she wrote me off the... She's like, I'm not good at writing cards. She's really good at writing cards. So I pulled this one off the mantle and I read it and I started to cry and I just went and found her in the house and hugged her. Yeah, that was last, Tuesday. Yeah.
Like cry?
Yeah.
Wow. Like convulsion cry? Wow, that's sweet. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that was nice.
What were the tears saying?
I love you. I miss you. It's funny. We spend all our time together and we can be estranged, distant. Mm-hmm. She said to me recently, she's like, some couples, they sleep in separate bedrooms, but I don't think I could do that. That wouldn't work for me. And I said, we are so vulnerable to being distant that we better not do that. I like sleeping with her, so it's fine. But, that we're both vulnerable to distancing. So
I think everyone's vulnerable to feeling distant.
Well, yeah. I think we can both get sort of isolative even in one another's company. So
I think given your traumas, if I might say so,
yeah, right.
There are abundant triggers that result in distancing.
Right. Yeah, there are.
And then that hurts.
Right.
But I think any couple with any distance, it's going to hurt them. Yeah.
Yeah, right. People are raising children together and holding down jobs, and then sure, the distancing happens.
Yeah, but what I tell my couples, because that's the majority of people, is it literally only takes 3 seconds to bond with someone. Because people will say, we just don't have the time. If you just stop and look at your partner for 3 seconds,
right?
Or instead of just hugging in the morning, you hug for 3 seconds or something. Like when you came over and we hugged just now, we hugged a little bit longer than we would have normally, I think. And I don't know why that happened, but it's an intention. It's easier to not.
Right.
And that's all it takes.
It is all it takes. Yeah.
You could do even more with an additional 15 seconds, you don't need a whole evening necessarily. And you could spend a whole evening together and not really bond, not really open up, not really be vulnerable. So what I tell people is, if you know how, and maybe you don't know how, maybe you've never seen it, maybe you've never even done it. Maybe your relationship is so scary to the two of you that it's really hard to be in the moment and be completely open and trust the other person cares, or if the other person is being in the moment, that they're genuine and not doing it because they're just trying to please you or whatever, And if you resent your partner, that's going to get in the way, of those moments. So there's all that, but it's not a matter of time. Otherwise, no couple in our contemporary society would be close. And yet there are plenty of couples that are close. You're at work and that boss of yours says another stupid thing and you just text your partner and say, get a load of what my boss just said, and you get a little chuckle, and there's a couple memes or emojis that are exchanged, and that's bonding. So you were crying because this card, what did it do to you? What's the magic to this card that would affect you that way?
Well, it's kind of funny because the front of the card, it says, I love you 97.8% of the time. And then on the back, it's she wrote, the other 2.1%, I love you too, but I can't remember what she wrote exactly. It was pretty funny. And then she said something, I wish I could remember it. I can't remember what she wrote. It was really very lovely. It was really sweet. But I actually don't remember details. Yeah.
But it was sweet.
Yeah, very.
And it elicited sadness?
Yeah, tenderness, sadness, gratitude, an urge to find her in the house and be close with her, an urge to be vulnerable with her, which I did. And as usual, she was receptive,
Yeah, in our simplistic emotional society, well, that's a funny way to put it. In our simplistic society, in our society that is simplistic about emotions, that's the right order. We equate tears with sadness, but and there's mixed feelings. Like I've seen the Pixar brilliant masterpiece called Inside Out that depicts this really well and beautifully, how we mature into mixed emotional states. But I would say for myself, the 99.9% of the times that I'm crying in my adult life are not during a majority sadness moment. It's in moments of seeing something wonderful. And I suppose it's infused a little bit with sadness because to see something wonderful, to experience something that inspires awe, alerts us to the opposite in that moment. When we look upon a newborn, we, at the same time as mature, understanding wise adults that we're all going to die. It alerts us to that. And there's a bit of that, but I think the majority of my crying is just from how wonderful life is, And I cry, I feel like I've been on the verge of crying this entire episode. And you could argue I have teared, it just hasn't cascaded down my cheeks, But the last time I cried with tears coming down my cheeks would have been, I think, yesterday when I was on Reddit looking at the subreddit Made Me Smile, is what it's called. And people post these really sweet things, and I can't remember what the post was, but it made me laugh and cry at the same time. And it was in the middle of the night. So, and I try not to wake up Stacy because she goes to bed a lot earlier than I do. Because I look at Reddit when I go to bed. It's not probably the best practice, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to interfere with my sleep. I turn down the brightness.
Yeah, right.
And I have earbuds in, so it doesn't cause any noise. But there are times when the next day she'll be like, what were you laughing about on Reddit last night? and I'll show her something. And oh, well, it wasn't this, but just as a made me smile thing, they posted it today of a kid, looks maybe 3 years old, and it says as a caption, it says that daddy has shaved his mustache. And so mom is filming as the little boy is coming down the hallway, and the dad is like wondering how the boy is going to react because the dad has had a mustache the entire boy's life. And at first the interactions are, in fact, I just sent it to my parents and they just texted me. So I'm gonna read that in a second because it'll lead up to this. So the boy comes in and at first is interacting with the dad, but not really looking at the dad. He can hear the dad's voice, He just kind of knows dad's over there, and so there's a little bit of exchange. And then all of a sudden the boy looks up and sees that there's something different with dad, and the little kid says, did you give away your like he says a really funny word for mustache, Did you get, and he had a funny way of putting it because he doesn't know shave or anything, right? He said something like, did you get rid of, or did you take away or something? Did you take away your mustache or something? And the parents get a little chuckle out of that. And the kid is, at first you're thinking, okay, the kid is adjusting, but then the kid slowly starts to kind of back away, and the way a child looks when they see a stranger, when they try to hide behind their parents,
right?
And they get quiet and like, who the hell is this person? And the kid even asked this really cute question, something like, so you're still daddy? Or, like a question like, are you sure that you're daddy? And he's just, yeah, it's still me. I just shaved it off. It's just me without the hair. It's just hair. And you see the dad, he's kind of slightly panicking. He's like, it's just hair. That's all that it was, And that's the kind of, so because when I was a kid, that happened to me. I was 2 or 3 and my dad had a beard throughout my whole life. And I had gone down for a nap. And during that time, my dad had, well, I think the sequence was my dad went up on the roof to get the leaves off. I went down for a nap. My dad, it was summer, so he comes down from I probably would have been 2.5. He comes down from the roof. It's so hot out that he's like, I got to get rid of this beard. So he shaves off his beard. He goes back to work. I wake up from my nap. I see this guy, and I don't recognize him. And I'm super chill, apparently, as a kid, that I'm just like, well, I guess this new guy is hanging around, and Dad's still on the roof. A month later, we're hanging out with my grandparents, and my grandparents, my dad was off parking the car, and my grandparents are like, where's your dad? And I said something like, he's on the roof, and everyone's like, what? And they start drilling down on it, and they figure out that I thought that my dad was still on the roof, and this random guy was hanging out with us and driving us around and stuff and kissing me goodnight, And so when I saw this thing on Reddit, I sent it to my parents, and I said, I can relate to this. And my mom just texted and says, is this what you might have been feeling? And we never noticed your reaction. How awful. Frowny face. Yeah, it's funny that, my parents are in a constant state of feeling ashamed of their parenting. They always feel bad about things. And that's why, so I said, I can relate to this kid. And then I made sure to also say, ha, with emoji, like, it's cool. I'm not saying anything, but my parents still take it like, oh, we failed you. But, it's a testament to how secure I was, I guess, that I was okay.
You didn't lose Dad. He's just on the roof.
Right. He'll come back. And
Mom's here.
And there's another guy here, and he seems perfectly fine.
Yeah. Right. Cool in the gang.
So, anyway, let's take a break, and let's answer another question. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, we're back from the break. So I'm trying to text my mom and reassure her that she didn't fail as a parent. So I said, I must have been very secure in your love because I rolled with it. I don't know if that's going to work, but maybe I shouldn't have sent them this thing. I don't know. The another question for Soft Noodles. So by the way, Soft Noodles makes art, comic book art that I love. And she sent in stuff. In fact, she was the one that sent that comic book about you.
Yeah, it's on my wall.
Okay, it's on your wall.
Yeah.
It's like a 8x10 that she made, and you actually like pinned it up to the wall.
Yeah, I read it. I glance at it all the time. And
What's the comic saying again?
It was about the person is afraid of their anger, so they've kind of holding a door. Behind the door is their anger, and they're holding it shut. And I'm offering some kind of reassurance, and that you're all right, and we get to chip away at our
It's probably Soft Noodles herself. She writes herself.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So she was, scared about anger, and we chip away, and then I think the punchline is, and I don't have to, and then my last line is, and you should probably talk to your therapist about that. And she's like, I knew it.
And I think her Instagram handle is Soft Noodles Doodles. I'm not sure, but I think that's what it is. So you can check her out there. And she has, last I checked, these comics. She made a comic for each of the co-hosts, and they're all very observant of our personalities. The final question she has here, and by the way, I always love these kinds of quick questions if people are compelled. So this next question, what is your favorite and your least favorite thing about podcasting? Oh, this is an interesting question. Bob?
Favorite? I really like the feedback. I really enjoy people's feedback.
Yeah. Why?
It's affirming. I think I don't I don't really get negative feedback.
No.
So whenever I see like comments after a episode gets published or whatever, they're usually positive.
Where do you look the comments?
On Patreon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you look on YouTube ever?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
I usually forget about YouTube.
But you mainly look on Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're always gratifying to read.
Yeah, you don't respond very often, which is fine. I'm just saying because I want those who are commenting to know that in all likelihood you're seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't respond, they might wonder if you saw it.
Right. And I certainly...
which you don't have to respond. I'm just saying.
No, I get it.
For the record, so that people know.
Yeah.
You probably are seeing it and absorbing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to respond in some way or other because people go out of their way to say something to me, and I'd at least say thank you, which I will often say thank you. And thanks everybody and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my favorite thing. And my other favorite thing is, you and I get to see each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say my favorite thing about it is, I've always been very Okay, my mom just replied. Still, when this little boy shrugged his shoulders, it broke my heart. Yeah, that's agreed. Yeah. Agreed. I've always been super friend-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I've always very much valued friendships and long-term friendships and deep friendships. I would, in high school, be found at a party just having really weird, deep conversations with people because that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do the other things as well, but that was my favorite thing to do, which really points in the direction of being a therapist, I guess. And so I've always very much valued that. And when I was younger in my 20s, I really reveled in that. I met you in my 20s.
Yeah, that's right.
And just how easy it was to be friends with people because most everyone's relatively single, no kids.
Right.
And, we don't have the kind of obligations that you have as an adult. Right. Your house or your apartment sucks anyway. You're not going to do any renovation on it.
Yeah.
Your furniture is from the sidewalk and
right.
There's no point in trying to make it look nice. It's just funny just how few chores you have when your house sucks,
Occasionally clean the bathroom.
Maybe. But what's the point in that when the rest of your place is disgusting and everyone else's house is disgusting? Anyway, so we just would hang out by default, 5 out of 7 days,
Yeah.
And I remember noticing that and suspecting that it would not always be this way because I would look at older people and see that their lives weren't like that. And I remember thinking, I want to hold on to that. In fact, in my mid-20s, started really wanting to live on my own and not live with roommates anymore. But I purposely held out longer because I suspected that once I lived on my own, I would never go back because most people that I saw that were older than me didn't tend in that direction, I mean, I suppose one, you can afford it as you get older, typically, but also you just get more intolerant of having to deal with other people. And so I, purposely lived with my friends as long as I could possibly take it. And I've always been that way. And as I got older, lo and behold, it happened where it just became a hardship. It became, like I said, in my 20s, it would have been hard for me not to hang out with my friends. Multiple friends, like probably a group of, 40, 50 people. Some people knew each other, some people didn't. It was just automatic, And as I got older, it was the opposite, where just trying to meet up with someone, even if it was, there's certain friends where I might only see them once a year. When I see them, it's like we've been seeing each other all the time. But, schedules and your energy level and your chores and kids and work and health and whatever, just all the other stuff. And I with this podcast, I've found that locks in this appointment for deep conversation. And that's another thing is like if I were to meet up with you or Rebecca or Umberto for lunch or something, we probably wouldn't get as deep. We might. Yeah. We might get deeper.
We might.
But it's a different mode. It's weird how podcasting, sometimes I wonder if therapists might use this. Like, I remember I found another therapist that worked with teens would find that if they drove somewhere, kids would open up. Parents will see this too. You try to get your kid, you go to your kid's room and you're like, hey, let's have a conversation about your future or about our relationship or how are you doing? And the kid will be like, I don't know, I'm fine. But you get him in the car and you're both looking at the road and that's the hum of the wheels and you're, it's just a kind of a trance state at times, the trees or the traffic going by at this sort of casual pace. It has this effect on people that I think gets them out of their guardedness and they're able to talk. And so I wonder sometimes if you created like a fake podcast with a guarded client, if you could actually get them to talk more.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because you know how when you and I talk on the podcast, it's a different conversation than if we were in person.
Right.
And it can facilitate more intentionality, I think, on conversation.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And can highlight. We won't go in directions on topics that, like in person, you and I went out for your birthday a couple nights ago and talked about things we would never talk about on the podcast. You know what I mean? So there's pros and cons, but I think that there's a conversation, a deepness, or a direct communication facilitated by having a microphone and having this notion that maybe someone's listening. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Our friendship has both facets. I mean, we have this kind of talk, and then we get together and have a beer and play cards, and we have that kind of talk, and usually that has interspersed with it other kinds of personal talk, and it's kind of hits all the I don't know, all the spots.
Yeah, there's a lot of bases.
Yeah.
And you and I on the other night were basically realizing in real time that we use each other in the same way,
right?
In that we have certain topics in our life that are aggravating or concerning to us that we don't talk about with anyone else except for each other.
Yeah, that's right.
So, because, sometimes I'll be complaining about, this particular topic and I'll realize, I'm probably relying too much on just you. You know what I mean? So I apologize for being a broken record when it comes to this, but
yeah.
I don't get a chance to talk about this with other people, or if I do, it's not really the same because they aren't aware of the sort of week to week trials and tribulations of this. And so, but there's probably like 3 major topics of my life that I don't talk about with other people other than you. I mean, Stacy knows about all these things as well, and I'll talk with her about it as well, for sure. But it's different when it's someone that's not like directly in your family, I guess, if that makes sense. They don't have a stake, I guess. So, and you kind of do that with me as well.
I do. Yes, yeah. That's true.
Which is great, and seems like, at least from on my side, a testament to that. Maybe I should be vulnerable with more people other than in these topics other than just with you. It seems like not, because if I heard this from the outside, I would say, you deserve to have a lot of opportunities to be real. And I'm sure a lot of people would actually want to be that with you. So I'm hearing myself say that to myself. But anyway, so podcasting, yeah, that's my favorite part is being able to do that, because if I didn't have that, I would have that a very occasional surface hangout, and it wouldn't fulfill me. And I wonder if I would have any of that fulfillment. And I'm guessing that would really take a toll. Research shows that a major factor in happiness is having friends for adults.
Yeah.
And research also shows that most people don't have as many friends as what they want. And many people don't have any friends, really. They don't have any regular, even halfway intimate friendships, particularly men, but really everybody. And I imagine I would, if I just take it, it's hard to know how I would adjust if I didn't have the podcast to talk with my friends, if I would amp up this or that, but I might not. I might just be sitting in sadness. Because there's a chance that you and I wouldn't even hang out socially outside. If I never started the podcast, there's a chance that we just would have drifted apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
With Berto and with Rebecca, with all three of you, there's a pretty good chance that I would run into the same problems with you guys as I do with all my other friends, where it's you just don't think to, call them up and invite them out, or you just get in a complacent state about your relationship, or you haven't seen them in a couple years, and so you're just it seems like a lot of effort to try to rekindle that. And you just end up drifting apart because, before you came on the podcast for the first time in, I believe, 2017, I actually looked it up recently because someone made an AI tool that allows me to search for certain words, and I think I just searched for Bob, and it lists. We can actually listen to it. I'll do it again because it's kind of funny to hear your first appearance on the podcast. But before that, we would see each other around the holidays,
right?
And I guess we would play cards every now and then.
But I don't know if that much.
Yeah, maybe not even that much. So it's just kind of weird to think about.
Yeah, I'm vulnerable to being overly dyadic.
Overly you and Colleen.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really thought about it till talking this all out right now, but because at first I was thinking my favorite part about it is hanging out with my friends, but when I really think about it, it's strangely very personally enhancing,
right?
And I feel bad for other podcasters that don't have this, because most don't. Most podcasters don't invite their best friends on their podcast.
Oh, right.
And if they do, it's only one of them. It's not
right.
three.
I watch a lot of home repair videos. Yeah, they never have their best friend.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, there's mention of the word Bob a couple in other episodes, I'm seeing that you're not on. But if I were to, so I'm looking through all of these entries here. Let me see. Were you on, is it this one? It's back when I used to have an intro song to the...
That's the break song now.
That's true.
So, Bob, do you take notes during session ever?
So that must not be the first one. We're talking about psychotherapy notes. What about this one?
So, Bob, you are a mental health counselor.
This is all 2017. It translates your words as, my name is Bob Ghetto. Bob Ghetto, like the ghetto.
Yeah, right on.
Hey, Bob, I have a email here from a patron that I thought I would read, and I thought I would get your thoughts on this. What do you say?
Sure, let's do it.
I mean, that sounds like it might be the first episode you're on.
Pretty close, if not. I know it was summertime.
Oh, maybe this is it. August 5th, 2016.
Yeah. Oh, 2016.
When I first started the podcast 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's called Malpractice Claim.
Ah.
It was in 2016. So it's funny that I think this episode is me reading one of my briefs from my malpractice.
Yeah.
So one of the very first episodes was there.
Wow.
So let's hear your very first words on the podcast.
I wanted to have my good friend Bob Gettle on the show. He was the original co-host that I imagined. When I first came up with the idea of this podcast, I was like, oh man, me and Bob, this is going to be awesome. You know, he's super funny. He's a therapist. We're really good friends. He always has interesting things to say. And I asked him about it, and Bob was like, no, are you kidding me? That's stupid. Who wants to do a podcast? No, that's not exactly what he said. But he said no. Why did you say no back then anyway?
I don't know if I have anything worthwhile to say.
To say, yeah. Well, I don't have anything worthwhile to say either. That's never stopped me from making a podcast.
Yeah, that's good. And that I started the very first intro of yours was, you know, when I first thought of this podcast, originally it was me and Bob. It wasn't me and Berto.
Right.
And I went to you and you were like, no, oh no. You were unequivocally
Oh, yes.
a no.
I was a no.
It was very clear. And I didn't, at the time, ask a follow-up. It didn't seem like necessary, but I didn't know why you said no until later, until maybe this episode.
Oh, yeah,
That
right.
you said that you thought you wouldn't have anything worthwhile to say. And were you also nervous?
Oh, very.
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus it was going to be videos.
Yeah.
So, in fact, it was, right? The
Yeah.
beginnings.
Which I don't understand what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I listened to audio podcasts. I didn't watch video podcasts. And audio podcasts are 10% the work, maybe 3% the work. With video, I had to get guys that were willing to videotape us. And then I had to edit all the video, and we had to light it well. And these guys that were video, I couldn't pay them. So I had to find people that were willing to do it for free, which is weird. And I did find guys willing to do it for free.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Sound guys. And they would bring their own equipment. All the lights and the cameras and the tripods and the lavalier microphones. And it was a weird time in 2008 because you wouldn't be able to find that today, I don't think.
No, I should think not.
But yeah, I'm just like, what was wrong with me? Back then in 2008, people weren't watching things like that. You know, YouTube was basically a blog site, you know? So
Is that where you published on YouTube back then?
that wasn't the primary. I actually published on, I don't know what I was planning to do, honestly. I don't know where I was planning on publishing because on YouTube, you couldn't publish videos longer than 10 minutes. So imagine that. Imagine that. YouTube didn't allow video because their servers were limited. So they limited your videos to 10 minutes. And so I would have like a 30-minute episode and I'd have to break it up into parts. It was really annoying. But Vimeo, which is a YouTube alternative, did allow longer than 10 minutes. So I uploaded to Vimeo at first. But, you know, people didn't really, and still don't, peruse Vimeo for content. You know what I
Does it
mean?
still exist?
Yeah, it still exists. Yeah. So I don't know what I was thinking. And sometimes I want to just go back in time and tell myself, just do audio. It'll be so much easier. And you'll learn the audio form faster. Because I didn't do video again, really, until 2020.
Right, that's right.
So I did video for about a year and then stopped it and just never did it again. And I don't know what I was thinking because I don't know how to podcast. I don't know how to publicly perform. I'm not a comedian. I don't know how to do any of these things. And being an audio podcaster requires a certain set of skills, but to be a video podcaster and presenter, you have to not only have all the skills that you need for an audio podcast, but you need like an additional like whole number of competencies to be able to do it. I don't know what I was thinking, but you know, I guess it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, right.
But what's your least favorite thing about podcasting?
Oh, my least favorite thing. I don't really have one because this is a nice part of my life.
There's got to be something that you don't like.
Okay,
about
my least favorite thing. I don't like being conscious of the way I speak, and so I and a lot, and that's just how I talk, and I don't like having to be mindful about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird in person, ums and ahs don't register, but on audio, they register. It's a very weird phenomenon. There are certain audio quirks or repetitive phrases that people tend to have. People will say sort of where it doesn't make sense. People will say, that was my problem in the beginning. And if you were just in a conversation with me, you wouldn't really notice it. And if I paused for a second or two to think, you also wouldn't notice it. But when it's audio, for some reason, I think because you can't see the person adds to it. But also I think our brains just process audio or recorded conversations in a different way. And so when I would listen back, I would hear the sort ofs and the ums and the knows from me and other people. And I would endeavor to get rid of those myself. I used to do a lot of that kind of stuff, but you can train it. You can train it out of yourself. And there are ways of doing that. One is just to allow yourself to be silent for a couple seconds, because a lot of those phrases are fillers just to keep the needle moving, and you don't need to do that. Another tendency that people will do is they'll get in this habit of softening everything they say because they don't want to come across as being overbearing or too sure of themselves. And so that's where the sort ofs come in, or the knows. The knows is a way of trying, at least for me when I was saying it, of trying to get people to agree with me because I am unsure about what I'm saying. And that doesn't help. It just makes you seem like you don't know what you're saying. So, yeah, it's weird. But I'm going to take a guess and say that the listeners don't care about any of the things that you're talking about. Because that's the other thing is I'm hyper aware and critical of all that stuff, especially with me.
Well, you know how to edit out my ums without even listening.
I do. I know what the waveform looks like. Because if I have to listen to the entire episode 5 times, because that's what I would have to do to catch all these, then that's all I'd be doing all week. But I can visually scan the file and get, I don't know, maybe 90%. Eventually, AI will be able to do all this. And apparently there are tools, but I've seen demonstrations of them, and they're pretty crude, and they have problems. But the AI is just around the corner. I'm sure they have it now, but they just don't have it commercially available, where you just say, take out all the ums and make it sound natural. That'll be soon. That'll save me some time. I can't really wait for that to come out. But on some level, you lose some of the authenticity. When I'm editing, I will leave in things sometimes, even though under normal circumstances, people would say you should edit that out. I'll leave it in because it retains the authenticity of it and the realness of it, which I think is important. If these episodes with you and me were lectures that followed an outline and we're trying to be real slick, then maybe I'd edit it out. But when it's a personal conversation, the pauses and the ums and the starts and stops, I think, are all part of what's being communicated, because people want to be a part of the emotional mix, I guess. To take that out, I think, would interrupt the emotional flow. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, the least favorite thing is all the busy work. For people that don't podcast, which I imagine most of you aren't, or you don't have a loved one that's podcasting, then it's hard to imagine. But podcasting, if I told you all the busy work, you would say, well, that doesn't sound that bad. But when you add it all up, it amounts to several hours every day. And also, it's a lot of annoyance. Just imagine for everyone out there that you probably have a job that has busy work. Like for you, Bob, you probably don't. I remember when I was full-time private practice, I didn't have a lot of busy work. There's the billing and the progress notes and stuff. So yeah, imagine that half your day was doing all that stuff.
That would suck. The
billing and the progress notes and the treatment plans and the insurances or whatever.
Right.
Scheduling. Imagine if half your day or more was spent doing that? Like, what would that feel like?
Oh no, I'd hate it.
Yeah.
I'd hate it. When I used to work at the mental health clinic, I had the busy work down to the barest of minimums so that it interfered the least and took the least amount of time I could possibly make. But that took months to years to figure out how to do. And in the meantime, they actually have to have written out treatment plans, but they're not like they're quasi treatment plans and they're pseudo therapeutic. They're really just a bureaucratic exercise, and they have no value or meaning, but we were required to do them. So I learned how to just, rubber cookie cut that would like boilerplate it essentially. Yeah. I mean, I had to write it, and it's all by hand.
Boilerplate it so it would be rubber stamped.
Yeah.
I'm trying to combine your two things. Yeah. And it really just bogs you down. And for those out there that would say, well, Kirk, why don't you just hire someone to do all that? Well, I have. My wife does some of that, but most of it still is in my lap because it's hard to trust other people. And I've tried, and it has gone poorly, believe me, because there's so many idiosyncrasies and there are so many opportunities for mistakes. And I hold this podcast and myself to a high level of quality, and I want things to be consistent. I want things to be, I don't know what to say. I want it to be high quality. I don't want it to be, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I also will start listening to a lot of podcasts and stop listening to those podcasts because they don't have the kinds of measures that I do to make it listenable all the time. There's a lot of mistakes. Dear listener out there, if you've never been through this, then you haven't, but I'm guessing you have, where someone recommends a podcast, you start listening to it, and 5 minutes in or 30 minutes in, you just can't stand certain elements that they are engaging in, where there's too much silly laughter about inside jokes that you don't understand, or there's too much intro music, or the sound quality sucks, or they don't introduce the topic well enough, or they don't walk the listener through things well enough, or any number of other issues. I obsess and have always obsessed for the 16 years of this podcast on those issues. And I do a lot of things, post, during, and after to eliminate those things. Are there some things like that in the podcast? Yeah. There are some things that will slip through the cracks or are just part of the process that I feel like, well, if I get rid of that, it'll degrade this aspect of the podcast. There's a lot of things, and I can't rely on some random employee to do all those things. People will offer, and boy, would it be nice. But, it's like there are certain artists, not to equate myself with an artist, but there are artists like, who's the glass guy? Chihuly in Seattle. He, at some point, is he losing his eyesight?
He lost an eye. I don't know that it was an accident, but I'm not sure it was directly related to glass blowing.
And thus can't do his own glass blowing anymore.
No, he has a team of artists.
Right. And these artists are excellent in their own right.
Oh, yeah.
Could be having their own careers.
Right.
And so what Chihuly does is he sketches everything and oversees things. But ultimately, a lot of the creativity exists in these other artists. But it's signed by Chihuly, and it's called a Chihuly. Similar to other artists where even famous ones from the past, they might have a whole team of artists that they oversee and do stuff in their style, and maybe the lead artist comes in and touches up stuff, but a lot of the creativity and the work is done by these other people. And so along those lines, these artists, Chihuly, for example, he can't just grab any old glass blower someone that's good at glass blowing. He has to find someone that is willing to put in years of time to get to know exactly the rhythms and the pace and the eye of Chihuly. You know what I mean? It takes a long time. And I'm guessing that Chihuly has to let go of certain perfectionistic aspects of his work, because if he micromanages too much, it'll fall apart. Well, I don't think it's possible. It would take too long for me to find someone that would be willing to work for the podcast to get to know that. I would have to be assured that they wouldn't quit because if I'm going to invest a couple years of my life to get them to know my rhythms and my preferences and my ways and the vision that I have, it would take that long for them to get to know that, especially for me to be able to trust them with that responsibility. There's no way that I could find someone like that, that would sign like some sort of blood contract to work with me for the next 20 years, So it just is. I've tried all the things, and I've experimented with employees, and that sounds funny. I've experimented with employees. I've experimented with having employees along these lines, or contracting people, and it just never works out. And also, I follow other content providers who will grow on YouTube or in podcasting, and I will notice that at a certain point, the quality of their content drops, I think in part because they have outsourced a lot of the aspects of the content making, Yeah. In the beginning, it was just them, but they got so big that they're like, oh, well, now I can hire people. And so they start hiring people, or they start getting other people to even host their podcast or other people to host their YouTube channel. And it completely loses the audience, at least for me and a lot of other people. And some people out there might have some examples of this that they've seen. And I think a part of it is that there's this very natural inclination to outsource all the busy work. But the busy work can be part of the creative process and that artistic vision that is very specific. There's a reason why some content providers rise to the top. And we normally think about it as the obvious aspects of the content, right? What you're saying, how you're, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of other little details. There's tiny little details that add up to what makes that content special to that audience. Anyway, I don't know if anyone cares about everything that I just said, but that's my least favorite part is the busy work. But apparently I need to, and I guess if anyone cares, me just rambling about that was me relying on you, the listener, and Bob as a little therapy session for myself, because I hadn't really worked all that out until I just did. It's been kind of rattling around in my brain for the past 4 years because the podcast, became a lot more work. And I do struggle with the hours spent, and I don't like doing the busy work, and it's emotional for me when this sort of thing happens. I think I need to process it.
Well, right on.
Yeah. Because it's my life. This is what I do like every day.
Yep, exactly. You don't phone it in. You work hard to make it successful. You work hard to make it good.
I do. And it sounds pompous or something, but
oh, no, I don't think so.
But I really do. Like even when no one was listening to the podcast, I would be, driving in traffic and just be processing and daydreaming about, oh, maybe I should change that. Or pretty much whenever I'm listening to a podcast that I'm just enjoying, like This American Life or TBTL or something, about 2% of my brain is making note of, oh, that's cool. Maybe I could incorporate that. Or, ooh, I hate that. I kind of do that sometimes. I should not do that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I always have, one eye or a little bit of my attention on how do I make the podcast better? How do I make the podcast better? How do I make the podcast better? And it's fun to do, It's not a burden. I enjoy it. It's like,
Creative.
yeah, it's like any, again, I'm not an artist per se, but any artist would be able to relate to this of like, that's when you're in the flow. That's when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because your brain just enjoys kind of thinking about it and improving and reflecting and noticing,
Yeah.
Like I'm guessing a painter would see another painting and say like, ooh, I like how that's affecting me, but there's a 2% in their soul that is thinking, maybe there's some vibe I can go in a direction of this piece, not copying it, but some kind of inspiration around this,
Oftentimes writers are avid readers.
Do you do that when you read? Do you have 2% of attention on taking notes for your own work?
Yeah, I do. And I love good writing, so yeah.
So what's the busy work of writing that you hate?
Well, I don't write anymore, so.
Which at least one of those cards behind you says they want to read your book.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if I could make comment about the busy work of writing. Well, no, editing is part of the creative process, so I don't think it's editing. I don't know.
Well, when you were writing more, did you not look forward to doing?
Oh, no. I'd get up at like 5 every morning and head off to my coffee shop. And
You would enjoy it.
Oh, sit for 2 hours, right? And then off to work. Yeah, and no, that was a highlight.
Well, the publishing part.
Well, yeah, I don't even know what that's like. Yeah. You've published 2 books, so you know what that's like.
You just got to pull the trigger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Another favorite thing about the podcast is that I get to yammer and yammer and yammer. And people can choose to fast forward if they want, and they don't usually tell me that they're fast forwarding. So, or they're asleep. I don't know. But I get to I'm a verbal processor, as you can tell.
Yeah, right on.
Wow, the wind is really going.
It is. It's windy. I had to take my umbrella down today.
Did you see the tree that was down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your road's blocked.
Yeah. I mean, not entirely.
No.
Yeah.
Half blocked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really windy.
It's very windy. It's supposed to be flood warnings till Wednesday.
I mean, things are hitting the window,
Yeah.
like leaves and stuff.
Right. Yeah, we got weather here.
Yeah, Seattle doesn't usually get windy.
Not often.
Yeah. So yeah, we just heard an explosion.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, that is for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because
You deserve it.
Are you sad, child, or have you got